Hello and welcome to the finale episode of the podcast Inclusion by Design. It's going to be a special episode this time. But before I get into the episode, a request. If you enjoy our reflective and open ended discussions, please follow, share the link to this episode, to the link to this series, and keep the conversations going. Okay, so about today's episode. My guest today is an activist who works with animal rights in a world where the humans often dominate the narrative. She is on a mission to reimagine inclusion, not only for people, but for all beings who call this planet their home. With her, we will dive into the complexities of coexistence, of discovering ways in which to design a world where animals can also thrive along with humans with love, dignity, and respect. Welcome, Radhika Bose, the founder and director of the organization Cape Foundation. I am so glad to have you for the final episode of Inclusion by Design. Please introduce yourself and your organization and the wonderful work that you do.
Thank you, Uma, for having me here. I'm very happy to be part of this program. And I started Cape Foundation to help animals get a better life, to introduce animals to children and other human beings, not to scare them about animals, to take away
The fear and anxiety around having animals.
animals around, the misconception people have about animals. That's my that was the priority of Cape Foundation, and also for policy implementations and getting them the rights.
We will discuss much more in details, Radhika. But before I get into your work, so as a child, I mean, when did you decide that this is what my life's mission and purpose is going to be?
Um, yes, I was always fond of animals. I have really my memory dates back to when I was, I think, 3 or 3.5. We've always had animals in the house. I mean, my family's always had birds, have had dogs, but I've never had my own dog. But I still remember that there were animals in the house, and my grandmother was a great animal lover. She had lots of animals that we've grown up hearing stories that she had mongoose and she had a deer and she had she had a deer that time, and there were lovely stories. And I always wanted to have a little mini zoo of my own. Zoo is a no, at that time was very fascinating as when I was growing up as a child. But so I remember the dogs in our family. There was a dog. So I'll give you some stories of my.
Please.
So there was a dog when I was growing up who was not a very friendly one. At least the adults in my family would say, "Don't go near him." His name was Ruff. "Don't go near him. He bites." And I used to be very sad. And he used to be chained up under a bench inside the house, and he looked so adorable. And I always wanted to go and pet him, but I wasn't allowed.
So you were 3
I think I was 3, but I was very young. And I wasn't allowed to go near him. And I would always want to go and pet him. And so that was the first time I got bitten, I remember. I was standing there, and it wasn't his fault. Want to clarify that from the beginning. It wasn't his fault. I was standing at the corridor and he was sitting at the back. And I was just swinging my legs, just wanting to touch him with my leg. And he was just sitting quietly at the back. I just was swinging my leg and was talking to there was a lady in front. I was talking to her and I was swinging my legs just so that I can get a feel of it, because I wanted to feel him. I wanted to touch him and see what he felt like. So I was swinging my legs, seeing that maybe with my leg I can touch him and feel him. And I kind of hit his snout. And that's when he kind of nipped me in the ankle, just slightly. And then he went back. He looked, to me, he seemed to be very sorry for what he did. But everybody came and said, Ruff is bitten, Shonai, Ruff is bitten. And I remember telling my mother, no, he hasn't bitten me. I kicked him, and that's why he's bitten me. I kicked him, but the adults wouldn't believe. So that the second story was my grandmother had a little tiny white Spitz, and she had my paternal grandmother. She had the dog, and the dog was, she kind of took to us more than my grandmother. She took to us. But my grandmom had a male help in the house who used to, I think, torture the dog.
Oh,
Yeah, he used to bully her, not torture her, but bully her.
okay.
And I remember telling him, don't do that. And he would bully her more because I used to tell him not to. So these are my memories. And I always remembered that I will not let this happen when I grow up. When I grow up, I will make sure that nobody bullies another dog or nobody ties another dog up or yeah, is cruel to another dog. So
I ask all my guests that the community or the group that you work with, if there were a alienation scale or a social exclusion scale, how excluded, invisibilized, or alienated is the group that you work with? So, if you had to give a score between 0 to 10, how excluded or how alienated or discriminate, how much of discrimination do you think animals face in the world which is dominated by human beings?
um, well, quite a bit. I mean, if I take the street dogs, for example, the street animals, the cats, the dogs, the civet cats, the snakes, the monkeys, I think they are discriminated a lot. I mean, people do, uh, I mean, most people are, they look down upon them. They say they're dirty, they're filthy, they carry diseases.
Yeah.
Uh, they will come and attack. When the first thing they do is don't touch them, you'll get some disease. Or they will bite, or they will scratch. Uh, and I think animals attack only out of fear. Most times they will attack out of fear because they are more scared of us than we are of them, obviously.
So it's high. It's a high score.
High
you would
score,
say.
yes.
High score. It's very suspicious. Um, Radhika, I wanted to ask you. Let's start a little bit more on the kind of inclusion actions that you or initiatives that you've taken. So you can give me an example of, say, different kinds of animals that you work with, and if you can give me a couple of stories or couple of case studies. These are real life case studies of how the exploitation or the abuse and violence against a particular group of animals has happened, and how do you, as a activist and your organization, how have you worked with that community of animals, and tried to salvage the situation, navigate, work for their rights or fight for their rights? Give me an example for my audience, for them to understand what is the kind of animal rights work that you do.
I think it's not finished. I mean, it's ongoing. So it will be ongoing because it's a long battle, and the number of people who have a misconception about animals is so vast, and to convert their mindset. So this battle will continue. So I will not say that it's not ended and it's not going to end soon, but it has to continue. Um, so there are lots of animals that I worked with. There are camels that come in for slaughter. There are elephants in captivity. There are street dogs. There are dogs that are breeding of dogs, the puppy mills.
Horses.
The horses that the stories you've told, yes, the horses, that that are used for the joyrides and carriages.
You know, most of the times we hear about tigers and the rhinos and, but give me some.
They're the wild animal category. They are more protected, I would say. They there are the poachers and things, but they are more protected by the government. It's the animals that are taken off the protection list, and it's the domestic animals that really suffer exploitation and that are really exploited.
So, give me an example of one of the animal communities groups that you work with and how you've navigated through it.
So, one of the examples I can give you is of circus animals.
Okay.
So, there were there are animals performing in circuses. In 2017, there was an all India campaign on inspecting animals in circuses to see how they were being kept. This was a joint inspection with the Forest Department, with the Central Zoo Authority.
And this was happening nationally.
This was happening nationally.
Okay.
So there was a particular circus. There was a list of circuses we were given to inspect. In that list of circuses, there was a certain circus in Salt Lake that was performing called Shonali Circus.
Okay.
And Shonali Circus wasn't in our list of circuses.
Okay.
So it was not a registered circus. It was more like a
private show.
Yes, it was a mala of sorts. It wasn't a circus, it was a group of people moving around, showing tricks and things. But they had an elephant. Now, elephants are Schedule 1 animals. And there's a lot of guidelines and paperwork and ownership certificates one needs to possess an elephant. So when I was informed by a friend of mine who stayed in Salt Lake, I must mention his name, Dr. Chandan Rai. So he spotted Shonali Circus and he spotted pictures of elephants there. He was very excited and he told me, do you know there's an elephant in Calcutta performing in Salt Lake? So I wasn't aware because I looked up my list of circuses and this particular circus wasn't mentioned. So both of us went off and said undercover and went and saw the performing of these animals, of the animals in the circus. And sure enough, we saw one elephant and a goat, and that's all they possessed. The two animals that they had was an elephant and a goat, and they had some little children performing as well over there. So we realized it wasn't a registered circus because no circus will perform with children. That is the first thing that they're very particular about. They'll not perform with children. So I videotaped the entire performance, and I went ahead and filed a complaint with the local police station there. So I didn't do it with the forest department because it was right next to the department, the main office of the department. And I was surprised that they didn't know that there was an elephant right next to them. So I filed a complaint, an FIR with the local police station. I remember the officer was quite shocked that he's never received a complaint regarding an elephant before. So he stood up from his chair and said, you want me to bring an elephant to the police station? So I said, no, you just have to inform the department, but you have to take the complaint down because it's a criminal offense, and the first step you have to take is write my
Take down the FIR. Yeah.
So this case went on. The elephant was confiscated from this particular circus. It turned out that they did not have the valid papers, and so her name was Chompa. The elephant's name was Chompa, and prior to that, I had kind of gone and seen her 2 days before I filed this complaint, and I had seen the performance, and I had seen her for 2 days before that. And they used to feed her, loaves of bread, and they tied her with a metal wire. And that's how they had kept her. And she looked quite
miserable
and undernourished, and skin was dry, and she was in a terrible condition. So anyway, she was in Salt Lake, in the Salt Lake Rescue Center. It wasn't meant for elephants, but they kind of kept her there. And she was a star of the place because everybody would go and see her. We spent she was a month, she was there for a month while the case was on in Bidhanagar court. So while the case was on, she was there for a month, and we used to go and give her fruits to eat. And so we won the case in Vidhanagar court, and Champa was then rehabilitated in Gorumara National Park.
Ah,
She was rehabilitated in Gorumara National Park. The circus was shut down. I go and visit her every year. I try and go and visit her every year and see how she's doing.
and how is she doing?
She's fine. She looks fine to me. She's always has a young calf with her normally, and she's a patrolling elephant now. So the few times I've gone and seen her, she has the greenery, she has a river to bathe in, she has her natural surroundings, and she's quite well looked after by the department.
Do you think she recognizes you?
I often wonder, but she does flap her ears every time I go there. So I'm hoping that's a sign of recognition. I do take little tidbits of, for her to eat, like fruits, mangoes, and watermelons for her to eat. So
You know, this is just such a story of, it's such a story of warmth and love and also of courage. I think this friend of yours who saw something like this, reported it to you, then you escalated, you fought against it, you actually talked to the police about how to lodge an FIR against an animal rights violation, and then taking it to the court. Choppa going back to a habitat,
the natural habitat.
yeah, that helps her to thrive, and you going and checking up on her well-being.
This one more incident I remember, I must tell you, is when I went to see her for the first time after she was. I gave it a year before I went and saw her. Okay, it took her about a year to get accustomed to the park, to her new environment. She was in her natural habitat. She had new tasks to do over here, and she was getting used to the surroundings. And she was apparently she was scared of the dark. She was, being a wild elephant, wild animal, she was scared of the dark because she had always light and sound. She was so used to. She was in captivity for 30 years, I think, or what we got to understand. So she was used to sound, light, brightness, flashy lights. So she wasn't used to the silence of the wilderness and the complete darkness. So they used to keep a bulb on for her till she got used to her. It took her a year to get used to her new surroundings.
So, what you're saying is, Champa had lost all her natural abilities and she had to relearn how to be an elephant in the free environment.
In the wild again, in the semi-wild.
Okay. One thing you said about the dark. I mean, she was so scared of the
Right.
dark.
And the other time I had gone, and they are allowed to graze.
Right.
They are given free time to graze also. They have, in the forest camps, they have routine. They have to maintain a routine. So they are given free time to graze without any shackles, without just free roaming in the open grass environment. So I watched 3 of them cross the river. Cross the river, go to the other side where there are tall elephant grass, and they were to graze over there. And 3 of them went there, and I watched Champa just stand in one place while the 2 other elephants who were with her slowly walked away, and they were grazing. Like elephants, they were walking and grazing around. But I saw that she didn't move. She didn't know how to graze. She had forgotten how to graze. She was just standing in one place and eating whatever was there around her. But she was also scared of losing the other two, sight of the other two. So I would watch her. Moment she thought she couldn't find the other two, she would rumble and she would throw some dust in the air. And after a minute, the other two would rumble and throw some dust in the air just to tell her that we are around. But that is how she would communicate with them. But she just didn't know how to raise. She just stood in one place, and it took her a whole while to learn how, because now it's been, I think it's been 7 years now that she's not in captivity now, or she's in a semi-wild environment. Because you cannot, these captive elephants, you cannot release them back in the wild. They'll not survive in the wild. So they're in a semi-wild, semi-captive environment. But she has her, now she knows how to graze. And she's left alone. She knows how to bathe on her own. She knows how to graze on her own. But it took her that much time to get back to her natural.
The impact of the kind of violence and trauma that she has gone through. Radhika, this was a story of a lot of optimism and hope. But I know you, and I have heard so many stories, and not all stories are like this. So the stories, the horror and the cruelty that we inflict upon animals, it's sometimes unthinkable that human beings do this. Can you give me a couple of more examples of how this kind of cruelty is being, it's so rampant, and there are people who know about this. We know many of us see this, but just we just are like bystanders. So, can you give me some more examples of this?
I'll tell you an incident I faced with the horses of the Maidan, the Victoria Maidan area. These horses are there for the carriages, for the joyrides, as we know. But we should also know the cruelty that is inflicted upon them. Because the truth is that these horses are, when they are hitched to the carriages, when they're finished with the joyrides, they are left open in the Maida to roam around and graze. But what they're eating, the grass they're eating, is not the nutrition they're getting. That is not all that they fill their stomach with. They need more nutrition. So they often move out from there in search of food. So they go and rummage through garbage like the dogs. They go, you'll see, we get so many calls from people that they found horses in the middle of busy streets, rummaging through garbage, looking for food. Because
So the carriage owners who own these horses, so they don't feed these horses.
hardly. So some of them, there are very few of them who actually give them some grain. You'll see sacks tied around them, but most of them don't. Most of them just leave them around the area to fence for themselves. And when they think that they're getting the grass, so that's nutrition enough. So one such incident, we got a call from uh, the Shakespeare Shawnee police station saying that there is a horse who tried to cross over. Now, most of these gardens that are there on Chorungi are they look lush and green, but they are also fenced in with these spikes, these metal spikes.
So this horse was trying to.
This horse was trying to cross over the metal spikes to get to the plants to eat, and got caught on the metal spikes, and the spikes had pierced his stomach and his intestine. And by the time we reached, his entire intestine was out. His stomach, his intestine, everything was hanging. It had pierced and it was all hanging around. And he was just suspended like this on this spike. And they had to pick him up with a bamboo and put him on the footpath, and he was just writhing in pain.
So then then you've taken this up to the Calcutta High Court for a.
There is a PIL that is going on in Calcutta High Court to ban these horse carriages. But this particular horse we had to put down because there was nothing we could do.
So when these kinds of PILs are done, do you get ample support from citizens and people who are seeing this? Do you
Support, people are writing to us. People are writing, they're writing on social media. But there are also a lot of people who are riding these carriages. But then again, I mean, there are certain a lot of people are writing to us, wanting us to ban these, write to the government, wanting us to ban these carriages, do something to ban these carriages, these joyrides, because it is a fact that none of these horses are being taken care of. And it costs a lot of money to take care of the horse.
Absolutely.
It costs a lot of money. And most of these people come from a very low socio-economic background. And they they can't maintain these horses. So, and then a lot of people will say you're taking away their livelihood.
Yeah. The carriage owners.
Carriage owners. You're taking away their livelihood. Now, these carriages are actually these are hackney carriages. These are from a 1919 act of hackney carriages when these carriages were used for transportation. But these are not being used for transportation. They are being used for joyrides. Yeah. And these carriages are getting bigger and heavier, and they're not scientifically made for these horses to pull. They are very heavy now. And these horses are they're undernourished, they're malnourished. They cannot pull these heavy carriages. But the government has to do something. We've given them an alternative. Bombay High Court has banned these carriages. There are electric carriages now.
Yeah, on that Marine Drive thing.
There are electric carriages now. So there is an alternative. We've given everything. We've given every option in court to the government as well. But they have to take these options up. It's not like we've just said, okay, we'll take away their livelihood and we'll not do anything about it. We've given an option. Other cities, other states have given options.
So you said that the carriages have gone bigger. So can you just give us, for many of us, we see this, we're not very sure of what do you mean by this. So what do you mean exactly when you say carriages have gone bigger?
So initially carriages were made horse specific. They were smaller in size. They were made of lighter material. The wheels were bigger and lighter. And they gave enough support for the horses to pull these carriages. They were hackney carriages. It's made specifically for transportation and the horses were much bigger and well looked after. And there's a draught and pack animal rules which you can make the horses work for a certain number of hours, which nothing is being followed here. And all these animals, if you actually observe a carriage here, you'll see one is a large animal, one is a smaller animal, the horses.
Okay.
One is a slightly higher one, so there's no balance that's being maintained. And most of these horses are all injured. So they will have some wound under the saddle, or they'll be blind, or most of them have some injury on the hoof. So they're not being taken care of at all. And taking care of the foot is a very important thing in these equines. And nothing of that is being taken care of.
Radhika, since I know your work a little, I'm just going to bring in a very important aspect. I mean, Cape Foundation does a lot of education and awareness generation with children. Like you've often told me, empathy and kindness has to start there. You can't expect that somebody is now going to be 40 years old and then realize all of this about animals. So how do you see this? How do you see your work with children related to your work on animal rights?
I started working with children because I used to often hear adults saying, I'm scared of a dog because when I was a child, I was chased by a dog or I was bitten by a dog. Or my parents told me that dogs, if you touch a dog, the dog will bite. Or you'll get diseased. I'll get some disease, or a cat will scratch me. But the childhood trauma often brings about hatred and disgust for an animal once you are an adult. And that trauma it's very difficult to get over that trauma and fear once you're an adult. So I started working with children for them to, not be scared of animals, and learn a little more empathy and kindness towards animals, and for them to change the mindset of parents. So often when I'm working with children in schools, I do get that occasional child telling me, my grandmother has told me not to touch the cat, or my mother has told me not to touch the cat or the dog. But I'm doing it in school so that they learn school is obviously teaching you education and teaching you the importance. So what you learn in school cannot be wrong. So
Yeah.
right, I mean, what your teacher tells you is
It's
the correct.
sacrosanct, yeah.
So it's the correct thing, and it's above what your parents tell you normally. So so I'm doing these workshops in schools, and I hope more schools take this up. So that, and I take the animals into the classrooms, because instead of having an open sort of environment where animals are running around and children are running after them, I take them into the classroom, because classroom study is very important.
Ah, ah.
So that they learn about animals inside the classroom environment.
It becomes like a part of the curriculum. A study about how do you interact or engage with an animal. How beautiful is that?
So, and a lot of children most children are not scared.
Uh-huh.
So we learn that children are not scared of animals. It's the adults who instill the fear in the child about animals.
And by the time the child grows into an adult, it grows with that.
That phobia has set in. So also, if they are not scared of animals, they will grow up. They can take up animal welfare as a profession.
Yeah.
These children will grow up to be, hopefully, be ministers or forest officers or people who will probably change the law or have better laws for these animals. So, if they have that feeling for animals and they grow up with that feeling, maybe they'll be better human beings for the environment, for the animals.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I mean, they will grow up as not only as, bystanders looking at all of this happening, they will intervene, they will engage, and they will ensure that the world is a safer place for both humans and animals.
Because often a forest officer or a police officer who's supposed to be the guardian of animals are scared of animals, don't have that feeling for animals, but they have been given the task to look after that.
So, yeah, if we have in the next few years, if we have adults who are in love with animals, the job will become their passion.
Because I've come across a forest officer who's scared of animals.
Oh,
He's actually scared of animals. He's scared of dogs. He's scared of dogs. So can you imagine he'd be scared of wild animals he'd be petrified of. So you have to have empathy for who you're protecting. If you don't have that empathy, then it's very difficult to do your job properly.
this brings me to the systemic institutional responsibility, laws and policies. How good or bad or useful, meaningful are the animal protection laws? How is your experience being? What's working? What's not working?
I have a mixed feeling about the animal protection laws. There is no law that protects, very weak laws that protects animals, very weak laws. And maybe the wildlife laws are better than the laws that protect domestic animals. There are no laws that protect domestic animals. And whatever laws there were that protects domestic animals are changed and taken away. So even Wildlife Protection Act has now changed. So it's changed and it's become, there are many loopholes in the Wildlife Protection Act now.
Okay.
And the rhesus macaque had been taken away from the Wildlife Protection Act. So they are now like a domestic animal.
Okay. So it's a monkey. It's
a species of monkey. It's the monkeys that the Badoralas take for
shows. Mandar Badari shows.
Yeah. So it's that monkey.
So earlier it was under the wildlife.
Yes. So now they've been taken off. So what do you do with those? They are a wild animal. They are not.
Yeah,
you cannot call them as domestic animals. Yeah. No, they cannot be. Dogs and cats will take to a lot of human beings. For example, okay. Horses don't come charging and biting you. Camels will not come charge, but monkeys they can come and attack you if they're scared.
Yeah.
They are, end of the day, wild animals. They're not being born in cities and growing up in the cities. They're being born in captivity, then they're growing up in cities. but they're actually wild animals in the forests. So if you take the Wildlife Protection Act off from them, then people can just really exploit them. So the the people who, the Madaris, will now be out on the streets with these monkeys, even though they cannot perform with these animals, because there is a performing animals license. The license. So there's a loophole here. But they can keep a monkey. But what do they do with a monkey if they cannot perform with a monkey? Because that's how they earn their livelihood. So what do you do? This is similar when I was telling you about the circus, elephants in the circus. If the license is withdrawn, what do the circuses do with the elephants? So they started smuggling them out of the state, which is what one of my cases were, to get back the elephants that have been smuggled out of the state, to get them back into the state of West Bengal, which the judgment came yesterday. So similarly with the monkeys, if the people don't perform with these animals because they need performing animals license, what do they do with these monkeys?
Radhika, there is so much of things, so many things that can be done. But if you were to leave my audience with one cruelty that's constantly happening, which we are aware of, and we can stop or we can raise our voices. I mean, I'm not saying that I can't talk about camels and elephants and horses, but what is that one thing that happens next door in my neighborhood that I know of, which I can put a stop to?
Actually, what comes to my mind are two immediate things. Okay, we are living with the dogs, let's say.
Right.
We don't see cats as much as we see dogs. I get a lot of phone calls from people, from communities, people who live in building communities, in housing societies, who want to get rid of their community dogs.
Okay.
Because of these dogs face a lot of stigma and also misunderstood a lot. And nobody wants to coexist with them. I mean, I don't like dogs, so I don't want them living in my society. I think they're dirty. I don't think they should be living here. But dogs have a right. There is a law that protects them. And if dogs are well fed and they're taken care of, and they can be excellent guard dogs also in your society. They can be excellent guard dogs. And they can be a good companion also to your children, to the elderly, to yourself. If you're walking around, if you're walking late night, they can be. So I must tell you this incident of police officers. So we do a lot of law training workshops with police officers and legal professionals. So how do you convert people? How do you try and convert people into liking dogs or liking
From fear to nurturing.
So we've been talking a lot of animal welfare with the police officers when we do training programs. So often I get these questions. So one officer had asked me that when we go out on our rounds, and we have these sticks with us when we are walking, these dandas when we are walking, these dogs come chasing us. So I told them that why don't you carry some biscuits or some sweets with you when you're walking?
Instead,
You carry them. They'll be excellent companions when you're walking at night. So another officer had told me, when I drive my car back at night, they have late night duties, and when I drive my car back at night and I'm going, these dogs are chasing my car. So we've often seen dogs chasing cars in Bath. So I said, you carry biscuits and carry something nishti, some sweets with you when you're going. So both of them came back and said, we've done that. We did what you said. And we gave them biscuits. And the second day, these dogs barked at his car. But when they recognized his car, they were wagging their tail and they sniffed his car and they came back. So they had this personal experience. And these people who did not like dogs, slowly, I mean, they didn't take these dogs and bring them into their homes or anything. But at least when somebody reported a cruelty incident to them they took that initiative and they.
So very small. What you're asking is just very small changes in behaviors, actions, attitudes that can actually change not only outside but even the fear inside. I mean, your internal um, uh, attitude and feelings towards the animals.
That fear is gone. I mean, that initial fear, I mean, just by giving them one biscuit or something to eat, that has changed. So similarly, when you're preventing people in your in your housing society from feeding these dogs, think twice before doing it. I mean, there are laws that are protecting. I mean, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be stopping them. But why do you want to do that? Why do you want to prevent these people from feeding your dogs, or preventing a dog owner from getting on the lift with your dog, just because you're not just because you don't like the dog?
Yeah, it's a lot out of fear.
It's a lot out of fear and hatred towards dogs. I mean, I wish I had these people when they were children.
Yeah, and you would have attended the Cape Foundation camps. The other thing that you were telling us also is how we can stand up and visualize the cruelty of breeding.
Breeding, yes.
So just tell me a little bit about that.
So people are, when they want, there are lots of people who want breed dogs.
Right.
And they want to go and buy a dog from a pet shop. But what happens behind the scenes? So we often, if you see these slogans, don't shop, adopt.
Yes, yes.
It comes from a huge history of what happens to these dogs and why we have said don't shop, adopt, why this slogan has come, why there are organizations that are using these slogans. It's because these dogs, these female dogs, these bitches are being bred. Every season they come to, they are being bred. It's like very cruel process that they go through. The females, it's a very cruel process they go through of how they are bred. And
Just a lot.
it's a puppy mill. It's basically a puppy mill. These puppies are not weaned properly. They are sold at a very young age.
So what you're saying, Radhika, is just, just to be conscious of when we are buying dogs or, talking about, I want a bred dog, what does it mean to actually go to understand the processes, the violent processes that go behind the scenes to get the kind of breed
Dog that we want.
that we want.
Most of these dogs are bred in bathrooms, and there are lots of these breeders keep a lot of females in their house in tiny cages, in cupboards. We've seen in cupboards, in tiny dark rooms, and every time they come into season, they are being bred. So they don't have any respite. As long as they can produce puppies, they are being.
My God. So I think one of the things that you're saying is this is something that we know is happening and we can stop this. This doesn't require us to go to forests. This just requires us to be cognizant of how is this happening in my neighborhood.
So when I go to a breeder or I go to a pet shop to buy a pup, I should also think of what I am here.
Yeah.
So it's the demand supply.
How has this happened? How is this being done? So you've really spotlighted many of the difficulties and barriers and challenges that there are for animals to live a bondage-free, respectful, dignified life. I know some of the content today that has come up is uncomfortable. But I didn't want to shy away from it, and I wanted you to talk about the cruelty that we sometimes met out intentionally towards animals. And thank you for sharing that so explicitly. Parts of the episode today and the photographs that you will see may not be what we wish to even acknowledge. But thank you for sharing that, Radhika. Before I leave, I want to ask you that, if there is I ask this to all my guests, if there is one song or a poem that you would like to share in the world, which captures the essence of the work that you do, what would that be?
And the song comes from the movie that we've all seen, Born Free. And so that's Born Free.
Born free as the wind blows,
So that's Born Free as the wind blows,
as free
as
the
free as the
grass.
grass grows.
That's I really, really hope that today's episode will resonate with many people. And we do small things. We observe little things and we stand up for what you say, Radhika, as the uh, empathetic interface with animals. Let them live and coexist with them. Thank you so much for coming on Inclusion by Design. Today's episode on inclusion of animals in a world which is so dominated by human beings, it has left me feeling that we really require new perspectives on, on inclusion, on empathy, on non-discrimination, on coexistence between humans and animals, between species. This earth is our home, and it's a home for all of us. So I leave this season having talked to so many activists and change makers on reimagining belongingness. I have learned a lot. I have been inspired by many. And I hope this has sparked some meaningful conversations and insights for all of you. Please write to us. Send in your comments, queries, suggestions, so that when we come back in the next season, we are able to bring you more such conversations which help you to, look at a world, build a world, contribute to a world which has social inclusion and equity at the center as a matter of justice. Inclusion in our action, inclusion by design. Till the next season.